Folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show here in Los Angeles, California, and we're joined by legendary bass player Jerry Jemmott. Welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show, my brother.
Okay, we can do one more take and cut that off. I forgot to cut it off.
Well, we already have a ton of people. People are calling for Memphis Soul Stew. Can you hit that?
Oh, taking requests. Okay.
People are loving this.
Okay, let me see. What key was that in?
More than enough is the feedback. You know, Jerry, it's so good to talk to you, man. I want you to talk to the worldwide audience about Jackie Robinson.
Oh man.
And more importantly, how would Jackie deal with what's going on right now in terms of making his world better? I mean, I know that he was a major role model for you. I just want you to riff on that. What would Jackie do?
Wow, he had help. He had conviction. He was on a mission. He wanted to prove that he was just as good as anybody else. He's one of the best at any rate at the time in the Negro Baseball League during that time. And so he was like cherry picked out of there are a ton of people who could have done that same thing, but he had the mentality to be able to withstand all the racism that was going on while he was playing professional sports outside of the Negro League. So it's funny, I heard Max Kellerman talking about him the other day, how Pee Wee Reese put his arm around him when people were giving him the business during the game, and he says, "Hey, he's with me, okay? We need more people like that as opposed to what he would do or what I would do. We need more support in terms of people coming to say, hey, we're all brothers.
We're all brothers."
And he represents the one who was able to come out first, among the first. He was one of the ones, just like myself, who got the recognition. He was in a professional league. So he's quite an example.
The last time we did our interview, you talked about this collaboration and you were working on with some younger kids involving Jackie.
That's okay. That was 3 years ago.
Yeah, and I just
42.
But I mean, can you paint the picture? What was it like? As best you know, best you can feel. What was he putting up? What was he dealing with and what made him still be able to put his arm around people and say we're all brothers? That there's an intestinal fortitude there that is uncompromisable, but it's also
went to school out here, so it was his whole environment that he came up in.
That's right. It's California.
Yeah, it's different than the East Coast, where we had to. The struggle was great, no matter where you are, because racism and I should say discrimination,
cultural bias. Yeah,
it's all over. Every society has it. So it's nothing new. But he had support. They always say, "Go west, young man," for freedom. And this is what it represented. So he was in the right environment to get the job done. Just like I was in the right environment in New York to do what I had to do, where the struggle was somewhat greater, getting through the political stuff that was going on, breaking the color line, working in the pits of New York. You talked about Warren Smith. I know Specs Powell. He was CBS. When I met Specs Powell for the first time, he said, "I'm Specs Powell from CBS." And I'd seen Specs Powell's name on tons of records before that. So here I'm meeting this man for the first time in the studio. He's introducing himself to me. That was a great moment. But the struggle is different depending upon your environment.
Yes.
It's all about the environment that you're in, and then taking your environment with you. You can't be dictated by your environment all the time. You have to change your environment with your presence to make a change.
I want that you said that was. Can you talk about an example when you did that in your career?
Oh, every time I picked up the bass, I did. You know.
But you talk about being a supportive. The bass is a supportive instrument. So you talk about not. What was the line? You don't react to your environment. You create.
You create the environment. You call it eshofuni. Eshofuni.
Can you spell that?
Eshofuni. It's a Buddhist term, as opposed to funi esho, being the environment taking care of you. You want to take care of the environment. You turn it around. So you bring your presence, your wisdom into the situation, so you're not being overwhelmed by the negativity or too much sugar in the water. You know, you want to be balanced. It's always about balance.
You give an example of that when you were able to turn it around in the studio when the vibe was not good and you came in.
Well, you know, the vibe is always good in the studio. Everybody's on their best behavior in the studio. I mean,
they want to get called back.
They want to get called back. They want to save time. They don't want any troubles. You know, it's like, you know, just take care of business. So that's a pristine laboratory environment. Now on stage and performing, that's a whole other story. You got the audience to deal with. You got the crew. You got the band members. You got the caterers. You got the road help. You know, you're mixing with people. It's an uncertain situation. You try to keep it as stable as possible. As I shouldn't say stable, but as controlled as possible. Having your own crew, your own sound man, your own house man. When you know, high performance groups, you know, they have all these things. But when you don't have it, is when things get a little crappy, basically. So then you have to make changes. We do this on the fly as human beings. There's nothing new.
But easier said than done.
Oh yeah. Now as far as playing the bass, you know, being supportive and changing things. I love the bass so much, I wanted to give it more presence. I love Mingus. I love Chambers. And ironically, we were all born on the same day, the 22nd.
I was going to ask you, the audience is going to love this. You hated the sound of the electric bass when you first heard it.
Hated it.
What did you, was it, what kind of electric bass was it?
It doesn't matter.
But okay, the point is that your heroes were upright players.
Yeah, I was an upright player. That's what I did, and I had an opportunity to play to hear an electric bass, and I said, "No, man, this ain't happening. I'll never pick this up." And then a few years later, I ended up picking one up as a result of this necessity, because the people I was playing with, they wanted to play with like Miles Davis and play with the back to the audience. They were cool. They had a couple of gigs, and these are younger guys. These weren't the normal people I normally would play with. But that just turned me off to the degree where I said, well, I'm going to play in that band with electric instruments. And next thing I do, I got a gig in Bermuda and got my setup. Came back and started woodshedding.
I'm curious, though, just for the record, did you play sessions on the upright, and if so, which one?
Just with the Mixed Birds, I did.
The which one?
The Mixed Birds. A group called the Mixed Birds.
The Mixed Birds.
Yeah, it's a group of it was kind of like the Newport Youth Band.
Wow.
Kids from different neighborhoods. They were put together by audio engineer Alfie Wade. He worked at a few of the studios independently in the 50s. And, you know, in the music area. I was 16 then. This is before I knew about... This is how I found out about session work, actually. Playing in his band. Because one of the band members, Richard Dubin, was... I don't want to tell a story about my book, but he's in my whole chapter about him in my book. Because he influenced me to go and seek a profession as a studio musician. Because he was hanging out with all the cats, Snooky Young, Clark Terry, Milt Hinton, George DeVivier. He'd come back with these stories about how they would go from studio to studio, making sessions, you know, making films, jingles, recordings, whatever, recording music. I said, well, I want to do that. You know? And Richie was so cool. I'll tell the story.
Yeah.
He had a receding hairline. He was 16. He looked like he was 30. But he talked like he was 40. Okay? So he can get into any place. You know? So I have a picture of him. In fact, I have to get it from Getty. He's on a plane in 1962. Now, this is when he was 18, going to Alabama to confront George Wallace. On a plane with Joe Louis, Johnny Mathis, Dick Gregory, Clark Terry, Snooky Young, whole bunch of activists going down there to confront George Wallace in 1962. Okay? He's on the plane with them, with the Apollo Band.
No joke.
Okay, this is 1962.
Wow.
Okay, that's Richard Dubin. Okay, so we're
No, but this is important because you mentioned him early on. But did you live in the city too when you first started out?
I'm from the city.
Because
I'm from the Bronx.
You're from the Bronx. Because Rainey said that a lot of times, especially when the older guard, Barksdale and those cats, they lived on Long Island.
Well, they couldn't afford
so
to.
when the weather was inclement, you guys were getting the calls. This is when the transition was occurring, you know,
Oh,
just because
really?
you were closer.
I didn't know that. I don't know about that. I know when somebody didn't show up, they would call me.
Right.
You know, it'd take me an hour to get there. You know, from the drive down from the Bronx, whatever. That happened one time for a Wilson Pickens session. They called me. Somebody didn't show up, and this was like 10:30. They wait from 10 to 1. And the guy at 10:30, nobody's here, so they called somebody. They called me, and I said, "Okay, I can get down there." I get down there, the studio is full of musicians. They've been playing this music, they rehearsed it, and they had nothing to do, waiting for the bass player to come to play the bass part. So I get, you get calls like that. You have to be opportunity knocks. I got one last week. The guy canceled an hour before the session, and they called me to come to do a session. My first gig in L.A. Right. Okay, just like that. This happens. It still happens. Somebody goes down, next man up. Just like on a team. Yeah. But it's good to be in the mix where you're part of that team. So it's all part of, being in the mix. It's a big deal.
Can you talk to bass players out there about how you learn to make the notes round?
Round? Well, I don't look. It's like you play. I wouldn't say round because they might not want to make their notes round. What they really want to do is create their own sound, whatever it be, sharp, round, flat, diagonal, whatever shape that they hear that sound or see that sound. They want to find out how to reproduce it on the instrument, and there's so many ways you can do it. You can play something 4 or 5 different ways, different fingering patterns, different fingering, left-hand fingering, right-hand fingering, different parts of the instrument you play on to get that sound that you want at the time when you want it. Because now you don't play the same sound all the time. You move along and you get different sounds according to the dynamics of the piece, the time you are in the piece. Things change. It's not like one sound all the time.
No, I dig. I'm talking about Jamerson. Jamerson seemed to always want to make the notes round, and they felt good. They were big,
he
round.
Had great technique. It starts with great technique. I mean, you want to get a good sound, you want a good technique. Then you go for your sound, and then that kind of like becomes the next level. But first, you want to get your technique where the sounds are produced clearly.
How did playing with the organ, your hero, the organ heroes, the organ trios, help your technique and your sound?
Well, not so much. Most of my sound and technique comes from playing in Latin bands, coming up in Pucho and the Latin Soul Brothers, Willie Bobo.
Pucho and the Latin Soul Brothers. Jemott's laying down the groove, man.
This is where my groove started, and I was playing upright then. So basically, when I play the bass, I just play the bass. I want to hear a good bass sound. I want to have a good bass function to support, elevate the music, to lead the music, to inspire the musicians, to inspire the singers, inspire the audience. This is what it's about, getting that sound and functioning in that capacity, basically.
I was going to say
it's all about the music.
Well, but a lot of people, and this is revelatory to me. There was an album called A Different Shade of Black by a cat named Luis Ramirez, and on the back, bass player Rasan Jemmott.
Rasan Mfame.
Explain the Swahili. So I saw
you got the first part right.
The credits actually online. There was you're right. So explain how you got your Swahili name.
It's things change. This is after my last TBI in 73, 75.
What's the?
I decided to change my name.
What's TBI?
Traumatic brain injury.
So you decided to change your name.
Yeah, this is a part of you don't feel when you have a traumatic brain injury, you always feel like a visitor. This is common among all of us who've had this experience. It might be temporary for some people, a matter of minutes, hours, or it's a lifetime in my case, basically. And a lot of my friends' cases who've had suffered these and still go on with life. Like I asked you before, I was talking about the fish. You ask the fish, how's the water? Fish says, what water? You ask me, how's the T-bar injury? I said, what injury? The brain's going to lie to you and tell you everything's okay. So you just move on. You just deal with it. Okay? You deal with it. And you get more. You get more. You get more. You become maybe accident prone. You know, prior to it, probably before you had your first one, you were probably accident prone. Or this karma, you happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. The right time to get a concussion, be in a car accident. For whatever reason, I know people have fallen out of beds and they found out that parents will tell them years later, oh yeah, when you were 2 months old, you found a bed, we found you 2 hours later on the floor. You know, unconscious. You know, they find this out later in life, but they have to go and live their life with these conditions, not even knowing it, and this becomes their life. They just operate on a different system, you know, not even being aware of it.
But it did not affect your time feel.
Oh, it affected everything.
Okay, so talk about how quickly you started to play music after the TBI.
After my first really big one, my third one actually was a really big one. I got hit by a car and it was knocked up 2 stories, came down on my head, in hospital for 2 weeks. And then I decided I wanted to play music. For the first time I said I wanted to do something, because before that, I didn't want to do anything. When you have a TBI, you don't want to do anything. You need to sleep, you know, you just don't have the energy, you're out of it. And that was my childhood. So when I said I wanted to play the bass, well, he wants to do something. Get him a bass. You know, just that simple. Just that simple. I had no memory. I had no idea of what it required to play music. I didn't have it. The kids around me I found, like Richard and Eddie Gomez and Alan Rubin and Micah Benny, all the guys in Newport Youth Board, Harry Hall, Nat Pavone.
Micah Benny's tuning in right now. This is unbelievable. You just name dropped that.
You know, these guys were fierce. They were like kids. They were like you were older than me. Tremendous musicians. So I knew I didn't have it, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't going to deter me from trying. At the same time,
I want to be clear though. Your career was well underway, and then the traumatic brain injury occurred.
Oh no, no. It happened when I was a kid.
It happened when you were a kid.
Yeah.
This is
my career started after. That was my passage into life at that point. It was my savior. I had no desire to do anything in life before that. So that became my life, my passion. So when I play the bass, I am the bass. I become the bass. Everything that I couldn't express vocally or emotionally, it comes out through the music. And it's still that way. It's very hard for me to express myself other than musically. It flows naturally. This comes out. But any other way, it's a struggle. I'm dyslexic. Think that I do play things backwards, but then I'll play things backwards also. That's part of my, my style. I'll play it upside down. I'll reverse the order. I'll change the rhythm. I break it down in halftime. I'll double time. Whatever it takes to get that feel for the moment is what I'm looking for. No matter what you want to call it, I'm changing the feel.
Yeah, Rick Marotta said he went on tour with you, and Roberta Flack, you were playing the bass upside down.
Yeah.
Is there any way can you play upside down right now for the audience? They would love this.
No, that's all right. That's I'm way beyond that.
Let me, Jerry, I want you to talk to people about the evolution of your writing. You talked about last year doing something along the line of sound. This year now is going into your autobiography. Can you talk about the calling and what has been liberating for you as you've gotten your thoughts out of your system?
Well, I tell you, man, it's really been reliving, years of despair and desperation is what it comes down to. Look back. Like I say, you don't want to look back. You want to keep moving. It's like my thing is, what have I done for you lately? It's always been my motto. I never looked at my past accomplishments. It's what I can do for you now that I'm focusing on, how I can get better to take my music and take your experience to another level. That's always been my desire from birth. That's why I started playing electric bass. I would have been content to play upright bass forever had I not been pissed off with everybody's, what the guys were doing. I said, this is not fair to treat the audience this way. They take requests and they take the money for the requests and they play a completely different tune and different style. And that just and the guys, they weren't that great musicians anyway to begin with. So I said, no, this ain't happening. I'm going to do this. It was a whim. I took, it was based upon this frustration.
Interesting.
I was pissed off.
So then translate that to your writing now. How's it coming out are you able to convey that angst?
Well, I hope so. I talk about it in terms of my journey. But it doesn't become, I'm not preoccupied by doing that. I'm just making music. I focus on, that might have been my motivation to get me started, but after motivation's gone, you have to go on like what you believe in, your faith and your desire and your passion. Motivations only get you so far. But you have some tools to work with to get you to that next level, to get the job accomplished.
A lot of people may not be aware of the fact that Jerry Jemmott was dear friends with Skydog, a.k.a. Dwayne Allman. And
a.k.a. Skyman.
Skyman.
He was named Skyman by Wilson Pickett, and then they changed it to Skydog.
Okay, so I'm just trying to recollect. Were you at Muscle Shoals for those? How did you meet Skyman?
I met Skyman with King Curtis. He introduced us. We did on that album, Instant Groove.
Instant Groove.
Yep. Instant Groove.
And then Skyman, and then all of a sudden it was...
Wilson Pickett named him Skyman. We were, this is the way he played. The way he would go in the high register with the bottleneck. He gave him that name when we were Muscle Shoals. And it stuck.
And then he went to Skydog.
Well, people talked about him in different ways. To hear his brother talk and everybody else, it's a natural evolution. But I remember paging him in the Atlanta airport, and they said, "Oh, you can't call Skyman. It has to be Mr. Skyman." So that's how all that started. It's like in 68, 69. And then he started the band with his brother in 69, after we decided to not do any studio work anymore. We were getting tired of getting ripped off for our ideas. So that was made the motivation for him to just start a band with his brother.
Right, you went back to New York, and that was the last time you saw him.
That's the last time. Well, we did a session with Herbie Mann.
Push.
Yeah, right after that, and he died after that.
He did. Do you have, expectations is the wrong word. Do you want to go on a book tour? What do you want to do? How do you want to get the message out to the peeps?
Well, the book tour would be great. Music book tour. I do workshops and clinics. Like I'm going to Germany in a couple of months to do one for Warwick, and Frankfurt, Germany. But I've done these things. We're starting with Jimmy Owens back in the 70s.
Jimmy, legend.
Yeah.
He'll be tuning in.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
We went to Senegal and
you
other
did?
places. Oh, yeah,
man. Wait.
See that picture up there?
I did. Yep. It's not going to... Yeah, it's not...
No, you don't can see it, man. I'm telling you. The audience can't see it. But...
so that's you and Jimmy and
Eric Johnson.
Eric Johnson.
And Darryl Washington, Grover's brother. You can't see him. He's sitting behind you on the drums.
I'm so glad you brought up Grover's name. I've been listening to him nonstop.
Yeah.
No, so I did not know you... Was that the first time you played in the Motherland?
Oh, yes, it was. It was. We went there twice.
Can you talk about how beautiful it was to play for an audience like that who was taking in the music in a much different way than Western cats would?
Whew.
Because, Stephen Ferroni, who you mentioned earlier, and he'll be tuning in later as well, he went with Clapton to the Motherland, and he said there was, at a certain point, it was just like a collective groan. It was just such a spiritual experience. Did you have memories of playing for the crowds in Senegal?
Oh yeah, I can put it to you this way: the memory, one of the most profound memories, is being not only playing for the crowd but being in the country itself. Just the overwhelming sense of blackness and richness of the culture that you can feel the moment you land on the airport when you hit the tarmac. You can feel it, and it just grows, and the interchange with the people as you move about the city, visiting the various sites, playing the music. The people were so supportive. It was crazy. That was for actually the 29th anniversary of their independence when we went to Senegal. We went to Gorée Island. We saw the conditions in which the slaves lived in. I had the unfortunate misfortune of having to spend the night there because the boat going back to the mainland was overcrowded, and I didn't want to. It was the last boat. It was 8 o'clock. It was dark, shark-infested waters. The boat was like swallowing in the water. I'm not getting on that boat.
Get your leg chewed up. I dig, man.
So I stayed on the island, and I could hear the slaves, the rings. In fact, Percy, he wouldn't leave either. He was on the boat. We got to the boat at the same time.
Percy was there?
Percy, yeah.
Oh,
Him and,
freaking love it.
And Tootie and Jimmy. Dizzy was there.
Did you go to... Because when Tootie went with Yusef Lateef, they had a day off. They went to Italy to play gigs, and they had a day off. Took a little prop plane over with Kenny Barron, and they wound up going to all these mosques. Mm-hmm. It's the most beautiful prayer sessions. You know, these Muslim mosques. Did you go to any mosques?
No, we didn't. Our trip wasn't that extensive.
Well, you were in shark infested. At least you didn't jump in those waters, dude.
So I stayed on the island that night, and I could hear the chains rattling, the calling, the howls, the moaning, and the groaning. It was like, because of the day I'd spent looking at the condition they lived in. They lived in conditions where this desk, this is how high the encamped I guess what better word would be their stall. Their stall was this low. It would be 40 people in a stall is from this as long as these two tables together. Yeah, that's about right. Be 40 people underneath. They'd be hunched down like this. That's how they kept them. That's how they slept. That's the kind of treatment they were undergoing to disorientate them before they sent them back to America to become slaves. Right. This was their indoctrination, how they were treated. And they had all kinds of these little tables and little sheds underneath the master's house. He lived on top. The slave owners, he was keeping them, and he would ship them in groups to America on another boat. First, they took them from Africa to South America, then back to Goree Island to disorientate them, then back to America and South America. That was the trip. That was the process. And so to have witnessed that and hear the stories about how they were treated and how they were beaten and killed and hung and not hung, but hung. They were just whipped in chains and just treated to get their minds focused on being slaves in this kind of system. After hearing these stories and having to spend the night hearing them crying and moaning, I didn't want to be there, but I had no choice. But this is my experience. I wasn't expecting this to happen, but it happened. Okay, I was there.
I want to ask you. Talking to Jerry Jemmott here on the Jake Feinberg show, having a ball. West Montgomery had a day gig in Indianapolis. Groove Holmes was I believe a garbage truck driver in Jersey somewhere. Mm-hmm. Jazz, when you were coming up, I don't really love that term, but it was blue collar music. Can you talk about what labels have done to music, and ultimately, in my mind, jazz has become an upper crust music. You go to any urban center now, you're going to be spending a couple $100, on food and drinks to see a show. I don't think Art Blakey intended the music to be like that. And I just want you to riff on the idea of the fact that the music, melodic improvisation, was blue collar music when you were coming up.
Well, you can call it blue collar music. That's like that.
You riff on it whatever way you want.
Yeah, that's the people's music.
Thank you.
It was mainly for dance. Jazz was made for people to dance to. And what happened was you had the swing, you had the Dixieland, you had the New Orleans. Then we got to progressive jazz. People started getting away from it harmonically, and the beats started changing, and it wasn't so much dance music anymore. The tempos changed. It wasn't so much danceable. And so that changed it. That's the progression of the music. It became more aesthetic, intellectual, as opposed to being groove music. And that's cool. I love Eric Dolphy. I love Charles Mingus. I love Duke Ellington. I love all the other avant-garde composers, Dvorak. It's like the music that has soul to it. No matter what genre it is, I'm for it. If it has soul, I'm looking for it. It's going to hit me. And every music doesn't hit everybody the same way. But if the music hits your funk button, that's your music. Okay?
Make your groove. I love it. I dig it. I mean, can you talk? You said something before about it's not about being heard, but it's more about being felt. The feeling is good. In a live setting, how do you bring that out? How do you make yourself be felt more than be heard?
Well, in a live setting, it's about the music, your choice of notes. You can control your dynamics. Of course, the house is going to pump up the bass, which is common these days. I can't control that. I can only control it from stage. So my stage sound is what I'm going for. What everybody has is different monitors, so they can get what they want in their monitors. So, and this with technology, it's not acoustic anymore. With acoustic music, you're gonna vibe, you're gonna feel things. With electronic music, those things kind of go out the window. You're at the mercy of the house man or the monitor man.
That's right.
And then you get to what you want to hear in your mix to produce the music that, to make yourself comfortable producing the music, basically. So those days of, it still happens from the stage for me. I can't control what's going on in the house. I can only control what I'm doing on stage and how I'm relating to the audience. That's the good thing about playing with an audience, because then you have something else to feed upon to inspire you. Other than the musicians and the music, you have another component, which is great. That's the great thing about live music. In fact, when we did the B.B. King sessions, Gordon Edwards brought down the ladies to the session to give us some inspiration.
I love that cat so much, dude.
Gordon was so cool. In fact, shout out to Gordon, because he's ailing right now. He's having knee problems. And,
he's all right though, right? I gotta call him. I love that cat, man.
He's not all right. Believe me, with TBIs, like you're not all right. You say you're all right, but listen, nobody's 100% anywhere. We all will go on the field with some kind of injury, some kind of difficulty, and it's just part of life. But you deal with it. So having a live audience at a special time is great. Like Mick Jagger does the same thing. He wants to perform. He'll have somebody sing at a table, a couple of chicks there, and then he'll pick up the mic and start singing. That's how he does it,
Well, I mean, they used to do that in fantasy. They would put a little crowd in there when they would record, so just to get the vibe.
Exactly.
Yeah, the cat. This is important about the cyclical nature of music, and ultimately the transcending the cycle of birth and death. You played with Aretha Franklin in '71, and then I want you to tell the story about going to this party or this awards thing.
The Warwick bass.
Yeah, the cat who was her bass player? Tell the story of how you reconnected with Aretha.
Ralph Armstrong.
Ralph,
a badass. He played with the Mahavishnu Orchestra.
I don't think I knew that.
Well, that's his back in the '70s. Before Jocko, when Jocko was coming up, he was coming up. Billy Sheehan was coming up. A lot of guys were coming up at the same time, who were just becoming more prominent. Stu Ham.
I just want to be clear. It was not Weather Report, but Mahavishnu he played with.
Mahavishnu.
He played with Ralph Armstrong, and
Ralph
then
Armstrong.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, RALPHE.
Yeah.
HE. He sent her a picture of me, him, Chuck, and Brandino Bassmaster, who also played with her. All four of us were her bass players, me being the oldest one, the first one from '68. So it was like from '68 to like 2014, the whole four of the many that played with her.
Absolutely.
So he sends her this picture, and I get a call like a week later to do the Letterman show, because he couldn't do the gig.
Aretha, someone called and said, "Can you do the Letterman show with Aretha?"
Yeah. After 43 years, she saw I was alive. I'm in Germany. I'm looking good. So she said, "I'll give him call Jerry." So H.B. Barnum calls me, and I agree to do it. And then a week later, he calls me to say, "You got a guitar player? Our guitar player stuck in Europe." I said, "Yeah, I'm George Naha. Call George Naha, my guitar player in New York." So if you Google the Letterman show from September 29, 2014, you see me, George, Sissy Houston, her new background singers, her old background singers, a great band. Ron Otis was the drummer. I forget, Richard was the piano player. Cat from Jersey was an organ player. I mean, great, tremendous band.
Just circling back here to Jackie Robinson for a minute, I just want you to talk to people out there who might tune in. They might not be music fans. They might never have heard of Jerry Jemmott.
That's for sure.
Yeah. But, they run in social circles where everybody looks the same. They all go and worship at the same place. They all have the same cultural biases. And yet this person will step back and say, I know what's going on is wrong. What is your advice to people to stand up for themselves and not get into groupthink, because that to me is one of the only salvations for our country. And I want you to give some words of inspiration to people that know what's wrong, but they're surrounded by the dogma.
Yeah. Well, living with honor is basically what it comes down to it. If you live, people who do things because, somebody's watching, I got to be right. But somebody's looking. If you live with the idea that nobody's watching, you don't care who's watching or not, you're going to do the right thing regardless, then you have to wonder about second guessing yourself or wanting to doing the right thing. Because that's always what we're looking for people's approval, whether what you're doing.
Right.
So if you live without looking for approval, that's the best place to start. Just do the right thing. You know what's right. We know about right and wrong, hot and cold, cause and effect. These are things that we grow up with children. We know yes and no. We learn these things. But whether we're able to work our way around them is what we're doing. People are devious. They find a way to circumvent what's going on. Like I said before, the brain will lie to you. It'll tell you that, the group you're with, it's okay to be with this group, although deep in your heart something is wrong there, but you're not going to address it. You're going to let it slide and go by. And people do this all the time. They compensate, to get along. They want to get along, as opposed to like being strong and standing up to getting something done, making a change. And it's very easy for me to sit here and say that. We all have challenges in which to do that, but you look for opportunities, and they will come. And the thing is, you won't be prepared for it when it comes, but you have to recognize, this is my chance to do it this way.
Right.
This is my shot. It's coming. But you want to be prepared. You don't have that mindset where you're looking forward to it, doing something. And when the opportunity comes, you say, not this time. I'm not ready yet. This is what happens. Okay, this is reality. Your brain says, no. And you have to find a way to get it done. No matter what your brain is telling you or what you're feeling, you have to get it done.
Make your groove.
Make your groove happen.
But before we wrap, you have any question, Ralph, for Jerry?
I wanted to ask you about your spiritual practice.
Excuse me?
Your spiritual practice.
My spiritual practice?
Yeah.
It's funny. My editor got me. I have an editor. My 5th editor of my book, and he's given me. Ironically, he's one of my former students from the Richard Davis base camp 20 years ago.
Base student, not spiritual.
He's a base student.
Yeah.
He's a base student, and he expressed it this way. He says, "Talk about your conversion to Buddhism." I said, I never thought of it that way. Converted, because I never had any religion basically before.
You were agnostic before.
I was agnostic, basically. So I converted from being an agnostic to a Buddhist, and it gave me a sense of a foundation. It gave me something to draw upon, to go to, that was tangible, that I could actually embrace and do on my own, and practice on my own, and be connected at the same time. And it taught me about life, basically. Not so much the spirituality of it, but the actual essence of life. Basically, it comes from cause and effect, and it's not just cause right now, but it's cause and effect from previous lifetimes where this sound was heard, and I'm hearing it now. Okay, or I'm feeling the reverberation of something I did many lifetimes ago, and like, bam, I'm hit now. It might be good fortune. It might be a brick falling off the top of a roof while I'm walking by and hitting me on my head and knocking me out. Cause and effect based upon previous cause. It could be the fact that I left the house too early because I didn't wash the dishes. And I walked out and I got hit by a brick. If I had washed the dishes, I would have been here at the time to get hit by the brick. Okay? It's just that quick. You have to recognize, if you do the right thing consistently, then the effects that come about in your life are more positive. And when the negative ones do come about, it's a chance, that opportunity to make a change. You look for opportunities to make a change, to let it go. Let go. It's not about you. Let things come in and then release them again from you using your own words. It's taught me that, to be more open. For a person with a traumatic brain injury, it's important to have a sense of, some sense of openness, because if you're not, you're like this all the time. Right. And it freed me from a lot of that. That's why Richard probably said, Jerry, you should chant. This is 45 years ago. Uh-huh. Okay, he's the one who's guided me starting to chant, and that's been my foundation ever since. I've been up and down since then. Believe me, I'm a human. You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I stopped for 20 years. I can't. But I'm back for another 20. No, I stopped for 13 years, and I'm back for. I've been 20 years. My anniversary will be 2 months. Will be 20 years where I've been, don't miss a day.
Yeah.
You know, like faithful like flowing water,
And
constantly going.
Why did you stop and what brought you back? What was that?
Drugs. You know, I was a heavy drug user. I got into, you know, tired of living the way I was living. You know, living a lie. You know, I'll take a vacation. I think it'll be a year. Turned out to be 13 years.
Yeah.
Then you have the years of recovery. You know, and all that. It takes. I mean, this takes a lot. I mean, I looked at it in a positive way of saying, well, you know, you haven't played in 15 years. Well, that means you have 15 years less miles on your body. You know, so you know, I'm not worn out. I'm still fresh.
Yeah, you've been on injured reserve or inactive for 15 years.
Yeah,
Your body's been preserved.
So I now have the energy, you know, to the desire is back where it's been back, you know, but the opportunities are fewer than they were.
That's right. Well, the studio scene is not.
It's not happening, and that's my forte.
Can you talk a little bit about that, like the connection between so many creative people and the desire to use drugs and addiction, and like how do you think about those? How does that all intersect for you?
Well, it goes back to the environment. You know, you bring your show with you. A lot of people, like, everybody doesn't fall into it. It's around you. You don't have to do it. And if you're looking for an escape, then you're going to gravitate towards it. You have an addictive personality, you're going to gravitate towards it. It doesn't have to be so. I know many musicians who don't touch drugs, you know, and on all styles of music. And some, you know, some who do. And some be able to work with it. Some who can't. Who can work with it, and some who can't work with it. I couldn't work with it. I had to I can't do this. I'll just put the bass down for a year, you know, and have a good time, you know. But that didn't work out that way. Year after year, after a while, I just gave up. I said, okay, when I get ready to quit, then I'll quit, and then I'll have to come back, and that's what happened. But it took many years. I never expected it to be this long or that long, but it took a lot. It took from 1983 to 2005 to really get it together. You know, to really get it together. Right. It took a lot of work, and it still requires maintenance. You know, you just can't set it and say it's going to be okay, because you're going to have opportunities to go off every second of the day. There's always something that's going to trigger you. You get a trigger for the trigger, and a trigger for that trigger. Right. You have a series of triggers set up. You know. No, I'll see you next week. Next week comes, next week, next month, in fact, and it's okay. Yeah. Set a date, you know, put a date on the calendar. And after a while, it doesn't happen anymore. That's how I was able to, you know, kick it, basically.
Right. People have been just having a ball. That before we wrap,
having a ball.
Can you
buy my book?
Buy your book. Can you play a little bass for people before we head on out of here? How he expresses himself, Jerry Jemmott.
Well, let me see. My thing is like, you know, I'm an improviser, so. Through that.
Dude, Jerry Jemmott, thank you for inspiring me and all people all over the world, man. I much love to you, brother, and thank you for being part of the program.
Well, thank you for having me and talking to your audience and talking to my fans, and you all stay in there, stay in the struggle. It's a lifetime of struggle, and it doesn't change. It'll always be this way. We live in a sea of suffering. You know, just make sure you're in the right boat to get across that sea.
Bless you all. We'll be back later on the Jake Feinberg Show.